Welcome to the month of August. Glad to be with you. I'm Reginald Campbell with the House of Reconciliation. Want to welcome all of you in. Want you to know that we are a ministry that is a house for everyone, and we are driven to serve. Glad to be with you. This is the month. This is the month of new beginning, new opportunity, shifting, changing, a number of things. So let's get to work. We're moving from the period of grace to transition and to transformation. And so the whole value has been transitioning to transformation. So we started out with the butterfly theory. We talked about grace, transition, and now we're trying to get on the outskirts of transformation. And the month of July was perfecting. Now, I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and they're not to offend you. They're to awaken your mind. What did you attempt to perfect? And the second one will be, have you taken out the trash? And that's what we're going to talk about today, the connecting piece. Because first of all, it's revelation from God. It has to enter your mind, and it has to be executed through your behavior and your vision that God has given you for your life. The problem is there's a lot of clutter in the mind. And you would have to look at what we are feeding the mind. I'll give you a couple of things real quick. We're going to still James 1:21, where we have to, and this is where, because where I'm trying to head is to teach us some of the things that we are asking God for is already been planted for us on earth. The problem is we don't have the right strategy, mindset, or plan to achieve them. So we make them miracles when they really are natural possessions. And so then we think everything is a hurdle. Everything is not a hurdle. But here's the thing. I'm going to ask you right off the bat, what's feeding your mind? Whatever's feeding your mind is feeding your attitude. Not only is it feeding your attitude, it controls your behavior. If it controls your behavior, then it creates lack of focus. Where lack of focus becomes a lack of discipline. And so this month, if we're going to enter something new, we first have to examine what have we released? What have we let go of? And what are we willing to do for my life, your children's life, your grandchildren's life, your family's life, for those, your loved ones? What's going to change? Because if not, we're just going through another month. So when we look at this, I thought about this, and this is really headed when you look at James 1:21, and it says put away, which means we have the choice. And one of the things that I think is significant is that many of us are only giving God 1% of us, and we're demanding 99%. And so what happens is many people are going to today go to buildings, go to worship centers, go to church, but they don't stand around or sit around and examine if they have a healthy spiritual relationship with God. Or is it demand and supply? Is it need and want? Is it playing the victim? Is it feeling as though I have accomplished a couple things on earth, so that puts me in a better position, and I'm better than my brother, or I'm better than my sister? And that's not biblical principles. That's actually clutter in the mind. The old church would call it, that's the old Adam. That's the old Eve. So when we look at connecting the piece, that's our mind. And in that mind is our will. In that mind is emotional intelligence, low IQ, high IQ, and critical thinking. Our mindset is the connecting piece between our faith, our decisions. What makes our decisions is the collective things that are in our environment. And so when we don't have the right things in our environment, and we're not necessarily in the right place spiritually, then we have anxiety because we're unsure. If we practice, we shouldn't fear the opportunity. If we're in the right state of mind and we're positioning ourselves spiritually, we shouldn't have to fear the next step or the unknown. It is because we have not gathered the right resources in order to make a calculated decision, because our mind has been full of everything else, and our mind has not taken the place to worship God, to commune with God, to meditate with God, to understand what direction God is. Because sometimes we don't know if it's God, if it's confusion. We don't know if it's God, if it's the adversary, if it's life, or is it me in my head? And so we're trying to get more. And many of us are only given 1% because we're checking our conscience and not cleansing our spirit. I'll say it again. Many of us are checking our conscience and being tied to tradition, being tied to religion. And the Bible says, for God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. And if I'm not trying to be spiritual and I'm just collecting things, things will be here when my spirit will leave my body. So that 1%, the connecting piece, our decisions, our life, and ultimately what we create. And here's the problem. Sometimes everything else and everybody else and situations and confusion is creating our life. And that's not our life. Sometimes we're trying to live a life for other people that we can't live for ourselves. Oh, this month's going to be tight. Go ahead and just chime in. I see some of you are up and awake this morning. Go ahead and chime in and say, oh, this is going to be a tight month. And you can look at it as open a door for the unbeliever, strengthening the believer, and perfecting the saint. That's the old school word, perfecting the saint. So here's the point. And let me give you this right off the bat. There is no future in division. No future. If your body and your mind and your spirit are not connected, you are divided. We're not talking about whatever's going on in the nation or in the world. If you are divided against yourself, in other words, if you're fighting your natural will and you're fighting your spiritual will, and you're not taking care of your temple, and you're not feeding your mind the proper things, you, my brother and sister, are off the rails. And so you think you're busy when you're actually carrying clutter and trash bags. So division created by those that want control. And see, many people don't want a healthy relationship with God because they think God interferes with what they want. And the Bible says that God says, your ways are not my ways. Many people are not asking God when they pray, Lord, is this your will? If it's your will, then position me with the knowledge that I need and the right approach. Remember when David went down the first time to get the Ark of the Covenant and lost so many men? Because he went down as David. He didn't go down as an anointed king that Samuel had anointed. He went down with his own heart and not the intent of what the Ark of the Covenant meant to the nation. He went down with his own agenda and lost people, and he had to come back. And so I'm saying to you and I, this is a time where it's supposed to be new, that we need to restructure and gather ourselves, because division is created by those who want control. And many of us want to control God when we don't understand that we are a product of God. So now we're demanding, so we're measuring the relationship with God based on things and not spiritual growth. If we were to really get spiritual growth, it turns into revelation that speaks to the mind, that connects to the body, that are able to carry out things that we're begging and praying for and looking for when they are automatically supposed to be a part of you. He says, go to Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. And I'm going to break that down a little later. See, the problem is you want the milk and honey without the milk and honey supplier. So you want the blessings without a relationship. So then you think you can come back and offer God 1% of you and expect to receive 150% of everything else. Because you can do everything else but stay faithful and committed to serve in the kingdom. So these are the things that we have to do. And so here's the thing. Here's where the division come in. It's in the word unification. Unification comes when the individuals work their body, mind, and spirit and become one with their creator. Because remember, you and I are living off of his oxygen. It doesn't matter what we think or what I'm going to do. If he recalls, and you know, sometime in the automotive industry, there's a recall. If he recalls, what side of the fence will you be on? So we need to strengthen who we are and who we believe in. And when we do that, now we set the tone for the family and the culture. Only then can we embrace true freedom. We think freedom is having what I want. We think freedom is no one telling me what to do. That's what happened to the Adams and the Eves. I can go this alone. And here's the thing. When people start complaining about your growth and what you're doing, they are intimidated by your opportunities. When people are always meddling in your business, in your estate, in what you're doing and why you're doing it, they see something in you that you don't see in yourself. And they see you as competition and not a neighbor. They see you because they think you're going to shine better than them. I'm going to say this again. Your goal is to bring yourself together and strengthen who you are, and you will strengthen who they are. And then their family and their culture will grow. Only then can we begin to embrace freedom. Now, the reason I haven't taught the principles of freedom is because we don't have the right mindset. We think freedom is getting more stuff we want. We think freedom is being able to control more things we have. We think freedom is telling you what to do. We think freedom is no. See, here's the whole point. Freedom comes with accountability and responsibility. And the problem is most of us have had people to talk nice to us and pat us and make us feel good. But just sit around and ask yourself, what have you produced? Where is your life at? Naturally and spiritually. And so then you get caught up on who's hating you rather than who's preparing you. And when you're caught up on who's hating you, now you have a real distraction because you lose the relationship with who's preparing you. See, God is about moving your future and your life forward. He's about generational things. He's about generational opportunities. So it's just not you. It is the lineage that you have to affect and impact your nieces, your nephews, your community, your co-workers. You are a light, but you are putting dim stuff on it because you're always in the trash can. Miss. This is why James is still relevant. The chapter of James, you can read the book. It's only 5 chapters. And I think it's only 108 verses. You need to read that to get some clutter out of you because it's daunting and it's destroying your belief. Because here's what happens. Belief influences choices. And if your belief is contaminated, if your mindset is always unbalanced, then how can you have a positive outcome? And choices influence outcomes. A person's inner thinking affects commitment, sacrifice, learning, opportunity, and growth. I'll say that again. A person's inner thinking. So we always worry about the exterior. Well, how do I look? And how do you think they're going to? Who cares? If you're living, you have permission to be on earth. Think about it. You worried about what brand you have on. You're worried about how people are going to see you, and you're trying to be perfect. How can you be perfect in an imperfect body? How can you be perfect with a broken spirit? And that is a trick of the adversary and the Adam and the Eve of your nature, because God had made them whole. But guess what? They didn't think they were good enough. So they tried to achieve something that was unachievable. You need to get comfortable in your skin. You need to know your pluses and your minuses and your opportunities. We need to know our limitations. And when we can accept that, now we can go back to our real strength. For he said, I will never leave you and forsake you. He never said that you wouldn't walk off. He's there, but you've walked off because you have gotten some things in advance. He gave you credit. He gave you spiritual credit. He gave you spiritual blessings. He gave you earthly things that you really wasn't ready for. And you come back with 1%. And then you want to be stingy with that. That's the Adam and the Eve. In simple terms, for the writer this morning, what time is it? Okay, we got a little time together. Belief, decisions, actions, and the results. These are the things we're going to talk about in the month of new beginning. What's my belief? My question is, what's affecting your belief? Whatever's affecting your belief is affecting your decision. Whatever's affecting your decision affects your action. Whatever affects your action affects your results. Here is the thing. This month, one of the key things that will be challenged is the victim's mindset. The excuses and the procrastination and the lack of interest in things that make us whole. So this month is going to be challenging the victimized mindset. Here's the thing. Here's what I said earlier. Most people are trying to change the external circumstances without beginning in the internal thinking. So my internal thinking has to begin to change. I have to reshape. This goes to Romans 12:1. That's where we're headed, but I'm giving you the pre-acquisition for Romans 12:1. So I'm trying to fix the outside. Oh, I'm going to make sure, how do I look this morning? Am I looking like I should? It's not how I look. It's how well prepared I am to do what my assignment is. So when you go into that meeting or you're locked in, have you done your homework? If you're going to pursue that new job or that new opportunity, if you're going to discuss and be around your friends and colleagues, are you the positive one? Or are you the one that's bringing another trash bag and wonder why everybody's stinking up the room? The mindset, it stinks. And so when you look at this, here's the thing. Here's a little cut. Being a beggar, many people play the begging role. Oh, Lord, if you do this, and oh, Lord, how many promises have you made to God that you have not kept? How many promises have you made to God? I may be off a little bit. I think there's 8,810 promises in the Bible. How many promises have you made to God that if you do this, Lord, so you're trying to make a deal when it's supposed to be a lifestyle? So you're telling God, if he do this, you'll do that, and thank you. And then when you come back, you owe him a dime. You owe him worship. Your life should be a testimony of what God has done and what he's doing and what he's going to do. And instead, you're still looking to receive when you really haven't sown or given. And I'm going to give you 2 words here. All right. So now, many people take on the role of a beggar and others are playing victim, undermining our natural and spiritual potential in God. When you are a beggar doesn't have a relationship. A beggar has a need right now. And once that need is met, they go to the next person and start begging. And here's the point. When I use the term beggar, it can be anything. It's not necessarily a person that's in misfortune or in a tough part of life. It is begging and not willing to be responsible for what you receive. That's a beggar. And think you're owed more than you're willing to work. If you got time to beg, you got time to work. If you got time to work, you can get better. See, some people always play victim. And I know that's a little tough, but the truth don't change because I said it. The truth is the truth. You have to take responsibility for you. Everybody does not have the same circumstances, but everybody has an opportunity. And if you're not around a place or a group that will give you an opportunity, then go find a place and a group that will give you an opportunity. But don't sit around and just beg, because that's an insult to God. Show me biblically where God told you to be a beggar. I'll wait. You undermine the natural and spiritual potential in God. God never asked us to beg him. He never has. 39 books of the Old Testament, 27 books of the New Testament. He's never asked us to beg him. Here is a mistake. We can't mistake activity for achievement. And many people are looking at activity as achievement. Activity is a part of the process. Coming to the Lord and turning your life over to Christ is a part of the process. That's just like the caterpillar going in the chrysalis, so it can change. You came to the changing room, but you never came out the changing door. You say that you're saved, but you'll never walk by faith. You say that you're a believer, but you never planted anything. You never produced anything. Because in your mind, the clutter says, I'm in bad shape and I need to receive. And here's what I want to say to the body of Christ this morning. Two things we have to learn in this month as we get to Romans 12:1. That's where we're going. Because to talk about blessings, blessings comes with responsibility. Blessings isn't for me to turn around and start begging for another blessing. It's commitment and sacrifice. Commitment and sacrifice. The problem is we're willing to receive, but we have no intentions on having a relationship with God. And if we don't have a relationship with God, then we don't know the impact of planting seeds to grow the kingdom. It says, seek ye first the kingdom. And if you look at the kingdom values, he said that heaven rejoices when one non-believer, the old text would say sinner, comes to Christ rather than 99 just. And so the 99 sometimes are standing around talking about, oh yeah, I just bought a building over here and I'm going to buy this land. That's stuff. God's biggest investment was you. And so all the things that we have accumulated, we don't get to get a U-Haul and try to take those things to heaven. And if we don't worship him here, and we don't spend any time with him here, how are you going to be in heaven for an eternity? I mean, what you going to do up there? What you going to do? Have your phone? Let me say, Jesus, let me say, y'all go ahead and worship. I'm going to sit over here and see if Bob's up here. And I'm going to see if Becky's here. And I'm going to see if little Reggie's here. I think we ought to go to brunch. There ain't no brunch in heaven. There's no big eyes and no little U's. Commit and sacrifice should go on top of our commitment, not replace our commitment to God. Our blessings should go on top of our commitment and sacrifice. Nothing should replace our commitment because we think, oh, I'm too big for that now. Let somebody else do that. No. God's not going to judge you by what other people did. God's going to judge you by what you're doing. And you need to go back and look at your progress report. That's what I encourage you to do. Because sometimes you're talking and not doing anything. So we only got about maybe 2 minutes together. So let me just fire us up, as I would say. Let's go, Reggie. God does not give us things to distract us from him. I'm going to say this again. God does not bless you to be more distracted about the blessing than him. If you're distracted, it's often not from God. God doesn't give you things. I think there's a text that said he'll put no more on you than you can bear. If you have something that has taken your attention off God, you need to question if God gave it to you. If you're so consumed about all this other stuff and what's going on, you need to check yourself to see if God gave it to you. Because God doesn't give you things to distract you from him. And for those who need clarity, he put Adam and Eve in the garden and he gave them an assignment. Do not eat from the tree of good and evil or partake in it. And they went against his will. They allowed something to become bigger than their commitment and sacrifice to God. That's all they had to do. God wants to grow you, but are you afraid of the growth that God has for you? Because many times you're stuck in a comfort zone, which you have control, which is limited control. And God's given you grace to come from comfort to fear to learning to growth. Where are you at? Because I want to read to you, just real quick, give you a paraphrase. Romans 12, 1 and 2 teaches the believer to offer themselves to God, to be transformed. So it has to be internally. By the renewing, the interchanging of my will to his will. And am I doing what he wants me to do? Everything about our life should be worship. It doesn't mean that we're speaking in tongues and cooking and injecting all the time, but we should live a humble a life with humility, a life that leads an example, because he said his word will be a lamp unto our path. If I'm taking me, that ain't a good thing. I need to take the presence of God and the revelation that God has given me to share with the world. I encourage you to like, share, and post. Inspire someone today. Start this month in the transitioning of the mind so we can meet the qualifications for the transformation. And when we meet the qualifications for the transformation, you will see your life will blossom. You will have less losses and more opportunities and more gains, just not only naturally, but spiritually. God bless you. I will see you at 10:15 or 10:20 this morning, the first Sunday in the month of August. The connecting piece is in your mind. God bless you. See you soon.